Welcome to the next section, Basics of Subjects and Preference Persistence. Here we'll first learn about various types of subjects, then we'll be using Rx preferences, create UI for setting, and finally we'll be updating the flow. Now we move on to the first video of this section that deals with subjects. In this video we're going to take a look at 4 different types of subjects and their uses. Subject is a consumer and an observable at the same time. It means that it can listen for values from other observables, and it can produce values for other subscribers. So, for example, this code is valid with a subject. We can see that on the second line, we're able to subscribe to the subject successfully, and it means that it acts as an observable here. On the third line, we made the subject listen to the changes that this other observable will produce. In a sense, the subject often acts as a mediator. More information about the mediator pattern is available on Wikipedia. There are 4 types of subjects, and we'll now learn about them. One of the most straightforward subjects instance is PublishSubject. The way PublishSubject works is that it just relays all the elements received to its subscribers. It can work as a message bus between different peers. We'll now look at its code. For this, we've created a new app named Section 11. And then created this sandbox class. And here we've added this block of code. Using this line of code, we've created a PublishSubject and make it receive 5 items from this. Next, we immediately start listening to changes to the PublishSubject by subscribing to it using this code. This line enables us to wait for 4 seconds. Then we start the second subscription using this code block. Also, we've added these do on subscribe and do on complete calls for better understanding of the flow. When we run this, we'll get an output like this. We can see that before the second subscription started, only the first one was emitting values. This is the first value for the second subscription. It means that the first 2 values 0 and 1, because it wasn't yet subscribed. Next, the second subscription consumed these values the same way as the first one, and they all completed at the same time, as seen from this. As we can see from all this, the PublishSubject has a simple and straightforward behavior. It just keeps relaying on values that it receives, and it will complete when the source of those values completes. However, what will happen when there are multiple sources? So let's examine this. This is the code we've added for this example. Here there are 2 observables. This is the first. And this line is the second one. They're emitting values to the subject, but we can see that the second observable will complete before the first one. So we've added this code. Let's run it. This is how the output will look like. As soon as the second observable completes, the subject completed as well and stopped receiving values from the first observable. This means that subject completes whenever one of the upstream observables complete. Also, if none of the upstream observables complete, it means that the subject will not complete as well. This knowledge will come in handy when there will be multiple data sources for the subject you'll be working with. Next, we'll learn about PublishSubject. PublishSubject is very similar to PublishSubject. However, there is a slight difference in the behavior when somebody subscribes to the subject. While PublishSubject just relays the received items to its subscribers after they've subscribed, the PublishSubject emits one value to the subscribers that was the last to arrive at the subject before subscription. This is the code we'll be using for PublishSubject. Here, the PublishSubject subscribes to the first observable by calling these lines. Then we start listening to the values emitted by the subject itself by starting the subscription. Finally, we subscribe the subject to the last observable. When we run this, we get this output. This shows that as soon as this line was executed, the subject emitted a value that was already present in the subject, A0. Afterward, when the new items were streamed into the subject, they were all printed out, as it would have been in the PublishSubject. The way PublishSubject works makes it a perfect candidate to store and retrieve configuration options. For example, authentication credentials. As soon as you subscribe, it will recover the last known value, and if there are any changes, it will emit a new one. The next subject we'll look at is ReplaySubject. ReplaySubject takes an entirely different approach compared to Publish and BehaviourSubject instances. It records all the values that it received, and upon a new subscription to itself, will replay all the captured values to the new subscription. Now take a look at this code. In this block, we've created a ReplaySubject with this line. Also, we've made it receive values from. Next, we wait for 3 seconds with this. We subscribe to the created subject with this line. When we run our code, we get this output. Here, upon subscription, it will immediately print all 3 items that were omitted until then. Afterwards, it will just continue printing the items received from the original observer. ReplaySubject will be useful when there is a need to replay the entire history of received items. The last on our list is the Async Subject. It works entirely different from the previous subject, because it only emits a single value that's been received from upstream observables. What it does is that it waits for the upstream observable to complete, and only then will it emit an item to its subscribers. This is the code for Async Subject. Here, the upstream observable is created by this block of code, and this issues 4 items, and it will then complete. After this executes, we'll just see this. It's the last value that was emitted from the source observable before it completed. Let's now consider that we subscribe twice to Async Subject as shown here. When we run the code, we'll get this result because the second subscription basically completed immediately and returned the last stored value in the Async Subject. Developers will find Async Subject useful in places they need to wait for a background operation to complete, and then use and reuse that value in the future. One example that comes to mind right away is the loading of categories. You initiate loading and wait until the subject has the list of categories. Afterward, all the future subscribers will immediately receive the stored values. In this video, we've learned about the types of subjects.